What's up, Packer fans? Aaron Nagler here. I'm going to start that again because it's Packers plural, not Packer. Here we go. What's up, Packers fans? Aaron Nagler here with Andy Herman, and we're ready to talk some football after the first loss of the 2025 season. Andy, it's all over. Burn it down to the ground. Raise Lambeau. It's all done. It was great. It was fun while it lasted, but fire everybody. At least that's what I've been reading on the internet today.
Well, the internet's always right. There is a 0.01% of me that's a little kind of slightly excited for our very first Packers therapy of the year. Everything else absolutely sucks and I hate it and I wish that it didn't happen. But we do get our very first Packers therapy very early on in week 3 and an unexpected week 3 loss to the Cleveland Browns.
No question about it. And as you know, usually during these conversations, I'm kind of leading subject-wise, right? Well, I'll hit on the offense and the defense, and then we'll begrudgingly talk about special teams, which I suspect we'll talk a little bit more about that this week. But I wanted to open the floor to you and give you the opportunity to let me know and the audience about what your major takeaway is from that game now, with the benefit of having, a night to sleep on it, but also a chance to go back and actually rewatch the game a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So the way that I watch regular season, now I want Green Bay to finish as best in the record as they possibly can. I would love if they could get a bye, like all that sort of stuff. But what I'm looking for throughout the course of a 17-game season for a team that I'm clearly expecting to make the playoffs, like if they don't make the playoffs, something has gone catastrophically wrong. I think we would all agree with that. So there's going to be a playoff team. And what I'm looking for are fatal flaws. What are things that if they don't correct them, or like it's not just a one-off in 1 week or, whatever the case may be, something that they are going to legitimately need to work at, or it will be a fatal flaw come, January, February, etc. That's how I generally kind of watch the regular season. So the ebbs and flows, they're fun. We all get excited for wins and, we get disappointed in losses, but whether it's a win or a loss, I'm kind of constantly looking for those things. And after 2 weeks, I should have been a little bit more keeping an eye on it because, as you know, go through, grade every player and every play. And the first 2 weeks, I had a very low grade on the offensive line through the first 2 weeks of the regular season. And I didn't make a whole lot of it. Zach Tom was beat up. Aaron Banks is just kind of either trying to get ingrained in the offense or not there. And Elton Jenkins transferring to center. And it didn't feel like it was cohesive yet. And as time goes on, you see that offensive line usually gain some cohesion and get to work better together. I was just kind of expecting that to happen in a natural way. But looking back at it, if you saw signs in 2 wins where you had everything kind of going your way, it probably should have been a little bit more of a red flag for me. And then you see week 3 happen and the offensive line can't do anything and they get their handed to them in both, offensive line or in both run blocking and in pass protection. And that to me is where I'm still sitting out of there is going to have to be some legitimate work put in. You saw the tweet I put out online of it's not just, if you move Jenkins back to guard, or if Morgan just goes to this, in fact, if I heard that was the solution of we're actually just going to move a couple people around, I'd be like, oh my God, we're in so far the wrong direction of where this needs to go. But that to me is the one thing that I'm sitting on. And I will bet you that they don't have a game as bad on the offensive line the rest of the season. I don't think they're going to go against many defensive lines that have Myles Garrett-esque players on it for the rest of the season. But that's the one thing where I'm like, you know what? If that is just anywhere near how you play against Philly in the playoffs or a team with any sort of good defensive line, you're just dead on arrival. So from here on out, I will be very much watching with a very keen and close eye how that offensive line kind of gels and plays the rest of the season.
That's a great place to start because I do think the story of that game was the failure up front along the offensive line. And I think one of the whipping boys that we saw coming out of that game is Jordan Morgan, right? And I just go back and forth on this because certainly we've seen some struggles from him at the guard position already in his short NFL career, right? Last year, prior to his going down with the shoulder and being kind of put on IR, he had the one start at guard and he had some spot duty at guard, and it didn't really seem like he was advancing in any kind of real sense from game to game. But then you go in the offseason and they run him at guard to begin with, but then we saw that stretch where he played left tackle and played pretty damn well. Now it's preseason, I understand that, but that does seem to be the position where he's excelled the most so far in a Packers uniform. But man, they have played him everywhere but center,
Yep.
especially at this point now. And I get it. Some of it is you got to be able to step in where injuries are, what have you. But to me, that looked like a guy. And I get like false starts are inexcusable. You got to know the snap count. Like these are the rudimentary parts of the job that you are going to be expected to do, no matter whether you're at home or away. And that's something I think we'll get into a little bit later. But to me, like Jordan Morgan looks rudderless as far as, you're talking about needing to drill down in technique, and that is certainly the case. But man, when you're always flipping from left to right, tackle to guard, like it's hard to drill down on any kind of real banked reps that you've had at one position when you're playing 4 different ones.
It really is, and I don't think they're doing them any favors. It's so weird because for years we were told you can't just take an offensive lineman and move him from one spot to the other.
Right.
Like it doesn't work that way. This isn't Madden, etc.
Right.
And for the past few years, the Packers are like, oh, actually, yeah, we can just put him anywhere, and it's mostly going to work. And I do think sometimes with some players just doesn't quite work that way. And for Jordan Morgan, even in this offseason, he had played really left tackle, left guard, and right guard through the entire offseason, had not spent any time at right tackle that I can remember in camp, maybe a couple snaps here or there, but didn't really do that. And then when you have the injury to Zach Tom right away, it's Morgan that's going in at right tackle. And it just, again, it didn't feel like he had any level of comfort there whatsoever. I get it, because to your point, well, on the game day roster, you get 8 offensive line. I mean, you could add another, but you don't want to, so you basically get 8 of those guys. And at one point in that game, you were down 2 offensive linemen and Rasheed Walker's helmet's having a malfunction.
Right.
You're down to your final 5 guys.
Yep.
Like you're no longer in like, well, who fits best? Where you got to get 5 guys out
5
there,
bodies, right?
Whatever you can do, right? So I understand that these guys have to cross train and whatever. I almost feel like with Jordan Morgan, there has to be some sort of like soft reset here of like, hey, maybe Darian Kennard is going to have to be the you learn everything sort of guy. And we're just going to have him kind of bite that bullet. But Morgan is just going to play guard and Belton's just going to play tackle or whatever that thing is that they decide. I don't care what it is.
Right.
But it almost feels like they just have to do something to get them a little bit more ingrained in 1, maybe 2 spots.
And I'm glad you brought up Belton, because I think he's the perfect example of what we're talking about, in so much as, remember, like after he was drafted and then we get to camp and he's playing only tackle.
Yep.
And I think about 2 weeks in, I can't remember who it was, but somebody asked both Matt and Stenovich, like, any thought, I think it was Spoon, like any thought of moving him to guard or running him at guard at all? They've stuck him at tackle and only played him at tackle, which, okay, great, awesome.
Yep.
But why isn't Jordan Morgan getting that treatment? You know what I mean? Like, so, and look, I understand his draft evaluation coming out. Some people thought maybe he kicks inside, maybe he's better suited to guard. I don't want to make excuses for the young man. He has to play better. Like, period, end of story. There's zero doubt there.
Correct.
But your phrase earlier was perfect. I don't think they're doing him any favors. And I think on the road, that environment, getting thrown in there like he was, man, that was a recipe for disaster. And it wasn't just him. That's the other part that gets really, I'm not going to say concerning, because I don't have concerns long term, but the frustrating part is, okay, yeah, maybe Morgan struggles, Belton maybe gets taken advantage of, etc. Man, Elton Jenkins was getting taken advantage of. Rasheed Walker was getting taken advantage of. I mean, these are your stalwarts, your vets. You're supposed to be your best offensive linemen. And simple stunts, simple kind of moves, inside moves getting beat. I understand Myles Garrett is a problem and he's got to get all the attention. And I totally understand that there's going to be breakdowns at times, but the complete breakdown repeatedly, that was the most frustrating aspect of that performance.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And it's inexcusable, and you can't have something like that happen. And I get there's some moving parts and Zach Tom goes out, but this is supposed to be one of your strengths, is having the depth along the offensive line. And it certainly did not seem that way. And to your point, again, it wasn't even just the depth. It was the starters, the guys that you are supposed to be able to depend upon, that did not have great games. And again, that's where I go back to, if that's something that just happens come Philly in the playoffs or whoever it might be, right, it's probably just going to be a long day. So they're going to have to learn from this one for sure.
One of the things that I do think played into the issues on offense, and I tweeted about it earlier this morning, and I want to get your take, because repeatedly we saw throughout that game the offense getting up to the line of scrimmage with around 10 seconds on the play clock, and there were a couple times where Jordan's trying to can and they're getting down and they have to burn a timeout, right? And it is something, to your point earlier, about that kind of did rear its head a little bit in these first two games. And Matt mentioned it after the Commanders game. The operation, the substitution patterns, the ability of the assistants to get the right personnel on the field in a timely manner. That's all true, and it all is a component. And I do think that really kind of reared its ugly head, so to speak, on the road in particular in that environment. But, man, it all starts with LaFleur being able to get whatever the play call is out in a timely manner so that everyone on headset and then his quarterback knows what the play call is as soon as possible. Because, man, that really seemed to hamstring them throughout that game in Cleveland.
There's some things that I think from a coaching standpoint, you want to be able to take for granted. On special teams, you don't want to spend a ton of time doing field goal block work and extra point work, right?
Right.
That should be one of those things that kind of feels like, hey, we just got to block inside or whatever.
You just want to jump ahead to special teams, don't you?
No, trust me, I do not. But like now they're going to have to spend more time on that. I think substitutions, right? Like you can't have a simulated substitution, whatever the hell that is. But like this is like the third time that this has happened where somebody is like almost come on the field or have gone off the field when they're not, where they're trying to get that extra guy or trying to like speed up the count, where like those things, those operational stuff is just not going the way that they want it to. So whether it's the ability to get the play in quicker, or if you have to use the wristband so you can just say number one and then he can read it off so you don't have to do it twice, whatever the case may be, some of that stuff is definitely something that's going to have to get cleaned up. It's some of the stuff that, again, you probably don't want to spend a ton of time on, but in those situations and circumstances, if you're not well versed in all of it and your coaches aren't getting guys in on time or whatever, or they're getting them in too early, it really becomes a problem more than you would like it to be. It's one of those situations with the injuries, the offensive line play, the special teams, the substitutions. That week 5 bye may not be the worst thing in the world for Green Bay right now.
I remember back in the day, McCarthy talking about how they would practice, and maybe I think Will Blackman talked about this as well. They used to practice the Saturday night before the Sunday game in like the hotel kind of conference room or a ballroom, where they legit would have guys lined up on a sideline and then practice the kind of substitution patterns. And I don't know if they're doing that these days, but that feels like something that needs to be stressed because, again, it was happening when they were winning, and it certainly, again, reared its ugly head against the Browns. One other thing on the offensive side before we flip to defense, a lot of conversation about the starting quarterback throughout Sunday night into Monday. Man, I do feel, and I guess maybe I'm just destined to play this role, but man, it does feel like people are awfully entitled when it comes to what they expect from the Green Bay Packers quarterback. I get the interception is a horrific play. There's no excuse. It is a terrible, terrible moment for Jordan Love. But outside of that play, I mean, he's doing what he can with what he's given. We just talked about what a disaster the offensive line was. He has no time in the pocket whatsoever. They're playing sticky man coverage. Guys sometimes uncovering, sometimes not. Definitely not a ton available for him down the field.
Yeah.
You know, and when he finally does hit one big shot, the wide receiver runs out of bounds in what should have been a touchdown in Matthew Golden. You know, and I don't kill Golden for that either. I understand I guess the inertia kind of took him that way, blah, 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 whatever. But man, Jordan Love was way down on the list of problems all game long. Now, I get it. Again, I cannot stress enough how terrible that interception was. But man, people just, unless he's perfect, the pitchforks come out after a loss. It's crazy to me.
We're at 1 interception through 3 games. You can argue maybe there should have been one on the dropped interception in the first week. There's one where gets called back via penalty in the first week. So there's a couple there. I've not had any major issue with decision-making for Jordan Love so far. In fact, if you're kind of going through I think the ball just came out of his hand weird on the one that was dropped to, what was it, Anzalone on that play.
Agreed.
That was just a weird looking play. I don't think it was a bad decision. I just think the ball came out weird or whatever. The play that Brian Branch picked off that was called back, his second interception worthy play. I cannot stress to you how much I am tipping my cap to Brian Branch on that play more than I'm taking anything away from Jordan on that throw. It's like I never in a million years would have expected Branch to pick that off when Jordan threw that play. And then in this one, I would love to have him have vision on it. usually when Matt's the first to say like, "Hey, I got to be better with the play call and whatever," like I'm like, all right, Matt, we know
You
the
roll your
song
eyes
and
a little
dance.
bit. Yeah.
But
I kind of did that initially, but then I kind of went back and looked at it and I was like, okay, I get what he's saying.
like here's where I'm at in that play. I don't think that you necessarily have to run the ball. If they punt it on third down, they win that game. I'll just put it that way. I don't think you necessarily have to run the ball or be that conservative, but I want a clean picture. Like, so if you've got the 3 slants on one side and the receiver to the other, I almost want the read to be to the other side of like, if we get a one-on-one on that side and your receiver wins, awesome. If not, we're checking it down or dirtying it, whatever the case may be.
Right.
We can't, the only thing we can't have is a muddied picture or anything. And to run a sort of a triple slant, quick read where there is some, congestion in the middle of the field, that's probably not anywhere even in the decision-making process where I have to put Jordan in that decision in the first place. And as far as Jordan goes, like, yes, I'm not absolving him of this play either. You have to have, like Tom Clements would be the first, you have to have vision in front of you, right? Before you can throw the ball. He clearly sees man-to-man coverage across the board, and it's a quick passing concept. So he's reading to his left side, the 2 slants to his left. Is it man coverage? If I get man, I'm good here. And so everyone's man. And then he reads it. It is man, and he quick rips it. And of course, the safety falls off of his man-to-man coverage to go make the play. It's not like they reinvented the wheel. This is something that defenses can do. So it's not like, again, this was something that has never been done before or anything like that.
History
So
of the NFL.
You have to have vision in front of you, but like, I can at least understand what he's seeing and thinking in that instance on a quick passing concept. I do give some credit here to the defense as well. But for that to be like the one play that I go back in this game, he took a sack before the end of 3. He's trying to make something happen. Schwessinger closed on him really quick, and then he didn't have the opportunity to throw the ball to the sidelines. If those are the things that we're talking about in a 3-week period of time in a 2-1 season where there's probably one throw we'd really like to have back in this game that was a catastrophic throw in this situation, I'm not concerned in the long term on Jordan Love's decision-making process or his ability to play quarterback. To me, he's been really good to start the season, came up with the worst time possible to have his first interceptions on the season. And it comes with the gig. And just to your point, last thing I'll say here is we know too, when things are going well, the quarterback definitely gets a little bit more of the credit. When things are going wrong, the quarterback unfortunately gets a little bit more of the blame. I think this is just one of those situations where the offense, nothing went well. The offensive line to me was by far and away the biggest issue, not the quarterback, but the quarterback had the big play in the wrong moment. And we're all looking at the quarterback, unfortunately.
But what's so funny too, is just, I'll close this off, but like what kills me is that everyone's braying for blood when it comes to that interception, but all those critics don't seem to remember what happened literally the next time the Packers got the ball. The very first throw Jordan has. Now they have a great return out to the 40-yard line. But the first throw up the left sideline legit puts them in field goal range with one flick of the wrist. And it's a gorgeous throw. And then they hit Tucker Kraft, and then they're down at the 20, and the game should be won there. But like, that's what you want. How did he respond?
How did he
respond? Responded with a dime that put you in position to win the game. Like that to me, but no one talks about that. And that like gets frustrating.
And like again, there's a narrative where if Golden does take that one to the house, it's over right then and there.
Game's over.
Game's over, and we're not talking about Jordan making a bad play on it. We're talking about, wow, what a throw to Golden to seal the game in a tough road game where his offensive line didn't protect for him. But it doesn't go that way. To your point, if McManus just makes the field goal, and man, that was a boneheaded decision by Jordan. But what a great job he did to lead them back down for a game-winning field goal drive at the end. It's just, unfortunately, the players around him did also not come up with those plays that you would have liked to have seen made. And now we're talking about Jordan instead.
And his head coach turtled. That's what I've been told anyway. I want to get your take on the decision there by Matt LaFleur once they did get to the 20, right? I mean, 2 plays. You got the shot up the left sideline and then Tucker Kraft, and then now you're on the 20, and then you just run the ball and kick it. Now, I think that's just smart football. I have no problem with that. Yes, you want to protect better, and we will get to special teams, but you want to protect better. You expect to protect better there. I have zero issue with a coach going, you know what? My offensive line has been handed their lunch all afternoon. My quarterback just threw a back-breaking pick. Let's just run the ball, get in position, kick this thing, and get the hell out of there. I have zero problem with that.
I am right there with you. So So much of this is we're upset because it didn't work, not upset with the process, right? We're going to blame the process, but we're actually upset with the result. So let me just switch it the other way around. Let's say Matt goes aggressive there and Jordan throws a pick. What is the first thing everyone is saying? What are you doing? Just run the ball 3 times, bring it down to 20 seconds, kick the field goal, get the hell out of Cleveland. Or vice versa. It doesn't even need to be a pick, right? First down,
sack, a strip sack, like anything could happen.
2 incompletions where the clock doesn't run, and now you get a field goal, but Cleveland's got a minute plus left on the clock to be able to go down and score a game time field goal
now because they didn't have to take them because you didn't run the ball.
Right? Yes. So now everyone's talking about, can you believe the play calling and decision making by Matt LaFleur down the stretch? They could have simply ran the clock down to 20 seconds left and kicked a game-winning, a 45-yarder with your big $1 million kicker that you just signed, and instead you're going to try to get cute when Jordan just threw a pick the drive before, a catastrophic pick the drive before, and your offensive line hasn't been able to protect all day. You're passing it in that situation. Can you imagine the vitriol of people online if that didn't work? Now, if it worked, if they went aggressive and Jordan threw a touchdown pass in that situation, hallelujah. In this situation, if they ran 3 times and picked up the first down or just did what they did and made the game-winning field goal and won the game, nobody says anything. So it's not the process. Like, I don't care if you want to call a conservative game plan or an aggressive game plan. If you call an aggressive game plan, Dan Campbell did, going for 4th down every time a season ago. That's awesome if you execute it. If they would have went 0 for 8 on 4th down that day, everyone's wondering what the hell Dan Campbell is doing. If you want to call a conservative game plan, that is fine too. We have seen Bill Belichick do that on multiple occasions. That is okay. If you go out and win Super Bowls, you can do it. It doesn't.
Mike Holmgren did it. That's the other thing. Like, we've seen it in Green Bay. Mike Holmgren was considered one of the most conservative coaches in the NFL, and he won a Super Bowl doing that. You're absolutely spot on.
You're pissed because it didn't execute the way that you wanted to, not because of the process. The process was sound, good. It's exactly what he should have done in that situation. Make the damn field goal, 20 seconds left, get the hell out of Cleveland, and the rest should have been fine. It wasn't. It sucks. It is what it is.
So, Rich Bisaccia, is he our scapegoat? What's going on there, Andy? Because, man, I'll tell you what, you talk about the $1 million kicker. I expect that kicker to get that kick a little higher, but at the same time, I do expect us to be able to protect up front. Like, that whole operation. And the other crazy part is hearing that John Kuhn on the radio earlier in the game was like, oh, they got real close to blocking that first one. Gonna have to be careful. Well, if John Kuhn can see that while calling on the radio, why doesn't Rich Bisaccia understand that?
Yeah, there's a lot that's frustrating here. The Matthew Golden punt that is downed in the 2-yard line where he doesn't, fair catch that one and come up and make that play. That's a situation that can't happen. Obviously the blocking and the execution on the kick on that particular play, that can't happen. I think, honestly, the thing that I'm even most frustrated by is it doesn't matter in the end anyway. The fact that you're offsides on the final field goal to the point. Can you imagine that's not an easy field goal. Nope. That's a 55-yarder clutch field goal. You ice the kicker, you call timeout. Like, imagine if he misses that and you're about to go to overtime. You gifted him 2 shots. He didn't need the second shot on it. You gifted him 2 shots at a game-winning field goal just because you're going to jump off sides. Like, it is mind-blowing to me how much ineptness there can be in just a very small period of time, and to have a field goal get blocked. Because like you said, it's 2 things. It's not only the low kick, but it's the pressure up front as well. It kind of takes both of them combined to have happen. And then to get, again, not only not come up with a special teams play where you can maybe block it on your own to get things turned back around, but the fact that you're offsides where you're going to gift them another chance too. Yeah, that's brutal. That's abysmal. And I don't know what else to say about it.
Here's the thing too. It's like, I get there are a lot of moving parts on special teams. You're dealing with a lot of young guys, a lot of reserves, then injuries happen. So the guys are in and out, you're shuffling a lot. But that happens in every town, right? In every NFL city, that every special teams coordinator is dealing with that. And I don't want to make it seem like I don't think, like, there are certainly good moments on teams. Exhibit A is that 40-yard return to set up what should have been the winning possession. Like, there are good moments. I see the talent and I see some glimmers of hope, goodness, whatever. But man, it does feel like a kind of steady drumbeat suddenly coming off that Commanders game. And then you look at the problem. I mean, hell, they had a play where they had 2 holding calls where the refs had to pick one to call or pick one to accept. The Browns did. There's just seems to be that start of a drumbeat where, okay, every game, Is it going to be every game we're dealing with special teams blunders? Because we all know what happened back in 2021 when that drumbeat got louder and louder, and everyone thought and knew and said, this is going to cost us. This is going to cost us. And then it did at the worst possible moment against San Francisco in the playoffs. And I'm like, I don't want to get too kind of over the top about it, but man, you put last week's special teams tape on and you put this week's special teams tape on, you got a theme starting to kind of rumble to life. And that is something that has to get nipped in the bud.
And there was a time like that San Francisco game, right? Like we were back in the era of like Green Bay invested nothing in their special teams. They didn't have core special teams players. They, they just seemed like they treated it as like something that barely mattered. Right. And that's not like, you have Neiman on this team, Zane Anderson on this team. You've got players that are legitimate, like Bo Melton is a really great special teams player on this team. You've got guys that are there specifically for that. Isaiah McDuffie, I thought, had a really nice day on special teams too. You've got the kicker, you've got the punter, you've got the long snapper. Like you've got, I think he's got 2 assistants that he chose for this staff. Like I think he's not one of, if not the highest, one of the highest paid special. Like this is not the situation where Green Bay was at one point where we're just like, yeah, we're just not going to invest in that. No, they have the resources into the coaches. They have the resources into the players. They have roster spots that are no longer being held for like,
developmental third-year guys
players like Alex Light. Instead, it's like, no, we're giving those to special teams players.
Alex
sorry, Alex Light. But yeah, this is what we're doing now, and it still is the same. This is why, Aaron, when you asked me at the beginning of the year, do you trust special teams? I said, no, I don't trust it. I never will trust it. I'm done. I'm over. I will never trust it ever again.
And that is a more than fair position to take, sir, and I applaud you for it. Andy, I could do this all day, but I know we're both busy and we got stuff to do, and God knows the more we talk about it, the more upset I'll probably get. So we're not going to do that. We're going to tell people to make sure that you're subscribed to the Pack a Day podcast, and make sure you check out our game preview, which will drop Wednesday for Pack a Day podcast members and CHTV Nation newsletter subscribers. Andy, you're the man. I really appreciate the time. We'll talk to you soon.
Can't wait. Thanks so much, Aaron.